Hello everyone and welcome to the Columbus Career Analyst. I'm Jake Hallfinger and today we will be going over data analysis that I did over a relationship between possession and expected goal difference, or xGD, for Columbus Crew games this season. And so basically, in other words, what I'm trying to do was find out if there's a relationship between possession and the Crew's performance over games this season. Um, so, so first, I guess I'll start off with what is XG? So expected goals is the chance that a shot will result in a goal. And models calculate this by factoring in shot location, defender and goalkeeper positioning, and also how the ball is moving, like if it's bouncing or if it's sitting on the ground and he's able to shoot it easily, or if it's bouncing, you have a lower XG because it'll be harder to score, or if they're shooting with a strong or weak foot, and every factor like that. So that's how XG for a shot is calculated. And then XG for a team, like XG that I'm using in this analysis, is all of those shots XGs added up to get the team's XG for a game. And I'm using XG difference for this to factor in offensive and defensive performance, because xGD is XG minus XG against. So that will factor in both offense and defense and give you a good sense of how the whole team is performing. So, okay, so now let's get started with the analysis. So first we'll look at the graph in the top left. As you can see, I used the line of best fit this time is a parabola, and the reason for that is because it has a higher r-squared value than if I used a linear, like a straight line. And and an r-squared value just tells you how well the line fits the data that you have. And in this instance, the r-squared value is 0.053, so it's not a very good fit. That's that. It's not a very good fit, but it was better than the linear value, the linear r-squared value. But as you can see, it has a negative slope. It's negative, so it kind of is concave down. And what that would tell you would be that if the Crew have too little possession, then we don't play well. If we have too much possession, then we don't play well. So there's a sweet spot, and in this case, it would be around 58% possession, where we would play best. And because a reason for that maybe would be that if we have too little possession, we obviously don't have enough of the ball, and we can't get anything going offensively. But if we would have too much possession, we're not playing well. Is that we're playing too passive. We're just passing it around our back line, not really trying to score as much. We are just keeping the ball instead of taking risks and trying to score. So then you could make an assumption that you would say, okay, well, yeah, that makes sense. So if we needed to find the right balance between taking risks to score and keeping the ball, and that would be around 58% possession. But the problem with this is that we have a small sample size. The sample size is 14, and for that reason, the p-value is high. And as you can see, on the very right of the table of numbers, the rightmost column is the p-value. And what we're looking for is the p-value to be less than 0.05, and that would tell you that you have a relationship there, and it's something out of the ordinary. Something ordinary would be that there's no relationship at all. So these p-values on average would tell you that there's maybe a 50% chance that there's a relationship between these two teams. These two variables, possession and xG difference. And in this case, the p-value is around 0.5, a little bit less than that. So we would have to say, okay, well, that's not enough to tell us that there's a relationship, and we'd have to conclude that there's not enough evidence that there's a relationship between possession and xG difference. And one reason why the p-value can be high is that you have a small sample size, and the sample size is small, around 14. usually want to aim for at least 30, but more than that is the more the better. Um, so, um, so in order to counteract that and try to see if there is actually a relationship, I decided to add the games from the past 2 seasons too, and I thought these would be similar to this season because we still had Nancy as our coach and we valued possession and would have the same style of play. So I wanted to keep looking at that because I'm like, okay, there looks like there's a trend here. And when I started this, we hadn't played Cincinnati yet. And if you see the top right dot in the graph is the game against Cincinnati. And we had a lot of possession and also we played well. We had we had like around 2 XG difference. So we had 2 more XG than Cincinnati. So we played really well and we had high possession. So that is actually skewing the graph, making it more flat and make it look like there's not as much of a relationship there. But when I was doing it, we didn't have that dot. So it looked like there was even more of a relationship. So I was like, okay, well, even more so, I want to look at the other seasons to try to see if we can get a p-value below 0.05 and like prove that having too much or too little possession is actually bad for us. We want to find the sweet spot. So now I added in all of those games, and if you look at the graph, it looks a lot different now. It's pretty much a square, and that isn't a bad thing, but it means that there is no relationship between possession and expected goal difference, which is almost more surprising, in my opinion, than seeing the negative parabola. So yeah, that was very surprising to me. So what we would have to do, the p-value is even higher, it's around 0.7, so there's still a chance that there's a relationship, but not very high. The r-squared value is 0.004, so there's it does not fit the data well at all. And yeah, so what we could conclude now that there is not enough, that we still conclude that there's not enough evidence to conclude that there's a relationship. But really, that's just technically, really we would be able to say that there's no relationship between possession and expected goal difference. And the reason why we saw the parabola shape here, and this is just random chance, it's due to random chance. The p-value is basically tells you the chance that this relationship shown is due to random chance. If there was no relationship, so basically there's a 50% chance that, given the graph, there's a 50% chance that there was no relationship between possession and XG difference. And so even though we had the parabola, there was small sample size. So now, if we look here, if we go back to this graph, we would say that 50% chance would show that there's no relationship between XG difference and possession. And if you look at the other indicators, r-squared value, the parabola is basically flat. There's really just no relationship. So, but technically, the seasons differ, right? We get different players between seasons. We had Cucho the last 2 seasons, but this season we don't have Cucho, and that could affect our style of play, how much possession we need to do stuff. Since we maybe have to play since we don't have Cucho, who is our best player, we need to play a little bit differently. We have to play different, and maybe not. And possession stats differ, and everything differs a little bit because we don't have our star player. So you can't technically say that this season there's no relationship between possession and expected goal difference, but we can conclude that over the last few seasons, including this season, but over the last 3 seasons overall, there was no relationship between possession and expected goal difference. So yeah, but technically we can't conclude that this season there's no relationship. But really, I mean, we can assume that there isn't. And going back one more time, if you look at Cincinnati, right, theirs is kind of towards the game against Cincinnati, which is in the top right. It kind of is showing that there maybe isn't a relationship because it's up to the top right, which would go against the parabola shape that we had. And as we filled in more games, as we play more games, you would expect that the graph would again kind of turn into a square and show that there's no relationship. So maybe we'll look back at this at the end of the season and try to determine, and we'll run this test again and see if there was a relationship or not between possession and XG difference. But so what this means for the crew is that really we shouldn't pay that much attention to the possession stat. I mean, it's good to have possession. It shows that you're kind of in control of the game, but really you shouldn't take that as an indicator of how well we're doing. We should look at XG difference or even goals, but XG is a better indicator of how we played. But yeah, because we know that XG difference is a good indicator of how well you played, how well a team played. But as we seen, there's no relationship between XG difference and possession. So really, we can disregard possession and play and look more at XG as an indicator of how well we did. So yeah, I think that's about it. If you have any questions, I'll give you a minute to put those in the chat so I can answer them. And if you don't have time to put them in, we can also you can put them in the comments and I'll answer them later. So yeah. Thank you so much for watching. Go Crew, and hopefully we can win. We have a game this Saturday away at Charlotte, so I might be doing a live watch along for that. So keep an eye out for that. I'll probably put that on the schedule at some point.